You are listening to Gaza Voices, a place to connect to the real, lived experiences of Gazans on the ground following the events of October 7th, 2023. This show is a collaboration between Palestinians and allies around the world. We aim to amplify the voices of people impacted by the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza at this moment in history, and to underline the personal cost of survival under siege. In our last episode, we heard from Alaa Redwan, a young pharmacist who lived in Gaza City and fled south within Gaza, eventually escaping to Egypt. Alaa described her personal struggles and details of health challenges faced by internally displaced Gazans, including specific insight into hardships faced by women in this situation. My name is Sen Jan. I'm one of the narrators for this podcast. You'll hear me and the voices of Palestinians and diverse allies as we bring in additional information over the course of this show to support the context of these voices from Gaza. Today, we speak with Alaa, a 28-year-old Gazan who was forced to flee his home with his family on October 10th after his neighborhood was destroyed by Israeli forces. After moving north to Al-Nusayrat camp, he was evacuated by the German Council in mid-November 2023 and is now based in Berlin. Alaa is a contributor to Gaza Voices. Here, he shares his story of daily life in Gaza from October 7th onward, starting from the moment he left his home and the subsequent fear and psychological turmoil of life under Israeli bombardment. He is interviewed by Alison Pear and Ahmed Naim on the 13th of January 2024 as the first interview of the Gaza Voices project. As Alaa's internet connection was occasionally unstable, the audio of this interview may reflect this. To improve listenability, portions of this interview have been re-recorded with Alaa in Berlin several months following the initial conversation.
I am Alaa. I am from Gaza, Palestine, now in Berlin. I am 28 years old, freshly married. I've been married since the 1st of May, so that's going to count freshly married. So when you said, what are your thoughts about 7th of October? 7th of October is a date that nobody will forget. It's a date that changed not just my life or just my family's life. It changed like 2.3 million citizen life. I saw a writing on Facebook that said, we just slept in 6th of October and we woke up on 7th of October. It just changed our life. But unfortunately, it changed our life in like a worse way, a bad way. On 7th of October, what I remember, like I just woke up with the sounds of the heavy rockets going around here and there. I woke up spooked. What's going on? The situation from 2 years before just seemed like it will be nowhere and no war anytime. It seems nothing will happen in the next 2 to 5 years. The atmosphere was clear. Nothing will go on. So we just were be assured. So suddenly a war came up. So we woke up. My father called me. He said this war will be different. And this war will take so much time. My dad works in an institute that interested in like politics, interested like in Middle East atmosphere, Middle East politics. For the first hour, he can see the between the lines that this war will not be like any war before. As every Gazan citizen, in every war, we prepare our bags. We take our most valuable things like some money you have saved in the house, some gold for your wife, for your mother, any gold you have in your home, your important papers, your passports, and a bit of clothes in a bag, and make it on the door. So if anything's happened, you can just take your bag and just run away to evacuate to any place. And of course, like any war, I went to supermarkets, I went to bakery, so I can provide my home with essentials item that I can use during the war if the war continues.
At 28, Alaa would have already experienced at least 4 significant assaults by the Israeli military on Gaza and many other moments of violence. The Second Intifada, a major uprising by Palestinians against Israeli occupation, started in the year 2000 when Alaa was 4. 2008 to 2009 saw the first Gaza war, which killed over 1,000 Palestinians and destroyed nearly 50,000 homes. In the next war, in 2014, over 2,000 Palestinians were killed by Israeli forces. In 2018, thousands of Gazans participated in the Great March of Return, gathering in weekly protests at Gaza's border with Israel, a militarized strip of tall fences and guard towers surrounding the region. Israel's military response killed over 170 Gazans and wounded more than 10,000 protesters as they demanded recognition of the right to return to their ancestral homes in Israel. In 2021, Israel launched air raids into Gaza in what it said was a response to rockets fired from the strip by Palestinian resistance fighters. At least 260 people were killed in Gaza, and 13 died in Israel from the rockets. Despite these experiences of violence, Gazans like Alaa and his family quickly realized that this current war would be of an intensity unprecedented in any of their lives.
The first day went badly, not bad enough, but it went badly. The second day, it went okay. There's a big tower behind us called Palestine Tower. It's about from the 13th to 16th floor. I can't remember exactly. They just bombed it and attacked it on the second day. So it went by air and collapsed.
This event that Alaa refers to was one of the early images of Israel's assault on Gaza, caught on an Al Jazeera live broadcast during an interview with journalist Yumna El Sayed. A brief content warning. The following minute of news footage contains the sound of an explosion.
The Hamas forces are believed to have brought multiple Israeli captives back into Gaza. Do you know anything about that? What can you report at this stage? All right. Yumna, please take cover. If you are in a position to do so safely, you can explain to us what we're happening. If you are not in a position to do so safely,
Yes.
then please get to safety.
No, it's okay. This is a missile attack on Palestine Tower, right in the middle of Gaza City.
Yumna, take a moment to breathe.
Within the first week of the war, Israel reported it had dropped 6,000 bombs across the small region. In our last episode, we heard from Hala how her house was bombed. One of those bombs came dangerously close to Alaa and his family.
On the third day, the action started in my life, actually. In the third day, one organizations shared across social media a map that was on 10th of October. Yeah, shared a map showing the areas that will be bombed and attacked today, from which time to which time. For example, they said that a Rimal area, it will be bombed from 5 o'clock till 10 p.m. So be aware, anyone in this blockade must evacuate this blockade because we don't want to get you harmed, so evacuate. So I took this map and looked carefully so I can decide whether I can evacuate from my area or not. So after I looked carefully, I saw that my entire building it's far away from the map and I am in the safe zone, so I don't have to evacuate. To be more assured, I called my father to make more sure. He said, "No, don't worry, just stay in your home and Also, maybe we will come to your home and evacuate in your house. So stay in your house, it's safe. According to the map, it's safe. Okay, my wife just got scared a little bit from the sounds. She said, "Look, let's meet the neighbors in the garage in the first floor so we can all surround each other." I am a little bit scared. I said, "Okay, let's go." We get our bags and we went down. From the people around, there was like about 30 people there. From them was my sister and her husband, and the family of my sister's husband also there were there. We were around 30 to 35 people, all of us surrounding each other.
In Gaza, extended families traditionally live together in the same multi-story buildings with more relatives within the neighborhood. From experience in previous wars, they try to determine where they might be safest and ask friends or relatives to host them, leading to crowded conditions. Because more safe means more full, during the intense bombing campaign carried out by Israel in this war, entire family lines, from elderly to newborn, have been killed.
On 5 p.m., the bombing started around us, and it was like heavily bombing. Our whole blockade and area was bombed. We couldn't get out. We don't know where to get out. We don't know how to get out because the bombs and attacking it is everywhere and we're everywhere. So we tried to take a sneak peek on the garage and we look at it like it was all collapsed, all stuck with rubbles. So we couldn't get out. So I get out and see the main entrance for the building. It was also like this. It was all stuck with stones, with big stones from around us. So we couldn't get out. We still tied on the garage and tried to call ambulance, civil defense, police, anyone who can pick us up so he can evacuate us to a safe place. All the lines were down, nothing responded. So we decided to stick to each other and just covering each other like this so no one gets hurt. It was like about 5 hours continuously heavy attacking on our neighborhood. So we didn't recognize which one hit us. We can count how many bombs were thrown there, but what we can know is that when we get hiding, suddenly the glass of the garage just exploded and got everywhere. So we went to the stairs, to the first 5 stairs. Every one of us stood there covering each other. So suddenly the wall beside us just collapsed on us. And finally, we've got to make a connection with the civil defense, saying to him, "We want to get out. We are trapped. We are under the rubble." He said, "I couldn't get to your area. Your area is the red zone." We said, "In the map, it's called safe zone." He said, "No, no one targeted the red zone. The actual red zone, what was showing on map, the actual hitting is in your zone." I said to him, "So what I can do? We need to get out. We are dying. The rebel is above us, and we are covering each other and making a shelter for each other. So no one's died, but we can breathe heavily. We can make connections heavily because there is no connections, and we are like under the ground. So there is no connections. We have to get out." My sister's phone actually, luckily, got aligned with one of our neighbors, and he assured us that he knows someone and he will get on his own risk with his bulldozer to our area to just clean our area, to clean the garage and make the rebels out so he can get us out. Call the civil defense and tell him that if there is someone, he will come with his bulldozer so he can get us out. We need the civil defense the cars so they can evacuate us to a safe place. I called the civil defense again and said to him that we succeeded to connect to someone with a bulldozer, so come and get us out. He said, I will see what I can do. I can't give you any promises. The area is too heavily to get in. After 5 hours trapped, it was the most difficult 5 hours in my life.
Alaa and his family weren't the only ones waiting for rescue during this time. The Palestinian Civil Defense, the public emergency services that operate within the Gaza Strip, was already reporting severe challenges in the first 5 days of Israel's assault. With the number of buildings destroyed nearing 1,000, the already under-resourced rescuers simply lacked the equipment necessary to respond to the growing hundreds of calls to reach people trapped in concrete rubble quickly enough. Israel rarely permits heavy construction machinery to pass its blockade of Gaza, deeming it, quote, dual-use material, an item that could have both civilian and military uses. In addition, the civil defense ambulances and crews were also being targeted by Israeli strikes, preventing rescue teams from entering targeted neighborhoods. Ahmed, on our interview team, asks Alaa about the tension of being trapped under the rubble.
How did you just manage for these few hours?
There is nothing to say actually, because this 5 hours was full with screaming, full of yelling to each other just to calm down, full of saying Al Shahadatain. We were going to die, actually. There is a saying that when you're facing death, all your memories, all your life events just come around just like there in a second. I experienced 2 times in this situation. One when the gypsum board and designs from the ceiling just collapsed on us, and the second one when the wall collapsed on us. There were a minute or two that I said that this is the point. There's no way out. I'm going to die. No one will get us. I'm going to die. It was hard feelings. We had children with us. We had 4 children with us. The group of age was about, for the children, from newborn children for about 3 months to 8 or 9 years old. So you have to calm down the children, you have to calm down the women there, you have calm down the elders we had. It was a difficult time.
Alaa's neighborhood, Al-Rimal, in northern Gaza, was totally destroyed. He shows us a video he took before the bombing. A quiet, residential area with wide streets, lined with mismatched white houses, some dotted with red roofs. Along the pavement are tall green trees, bright flowers, and a few cars. In the video he took after the bombardment, the area is unrecognizable. Most houses have been totally razed to the ground. A seldom few still stand, half crumbled. Trees are flattened. An eerie silence hangs in the air. The colors of daily life replaced with a dark gray of rubble and flattened earth. Fears grew over the unknown number of survivors trapped under the rubble. Alaa, his family, and neighbors were among those trapped. Because Alaa's sister was able to call for help, their family were among the lucky ones to be rescued. In early May 2024, Gaza health authorities stated that they believe more than 10,000 people are still buried under the rubble.
The Minister of Culture was a symbol for Gaza because it was one of the most beautiful ministries in Gaza Strip. So everyone in Gaza Strip knows where is the Minister of Culture. So when my sister actually connected to the one with the bulldozer, she said we are in front of the Ministry of Culture in a building called Al-Mu'taz Sitta. We are all there trapped. He said I went there 2 or 3 times, but believe me, there is no Minister of Culture remained. Could you please do anything else to just help me know where exactly you are? I suggested to the people that we are just screaming and yelling to him to make an alarm or make an alert that we are here. When we yelled, he heard us, so he just made a beep with his horn with bulldozers, like he was replying to us that yeah, I've got you. I will get you out right now. So when the civil defense came, he said, you have 10 minutes, and my coordinations is like for 10 minutes, we have to get you out quickly. If anyone cannot or will not get in our little cars, we will keep him in the air. So we all get in these cars, didn't know what happened there because it was really dark, no electricity to see anything. We just get in the cars, and he put us in Al Shifa hospital. So we can decide where to go. It's our own.
After October 7th, thousands sought out medical aid and shelter in Al Shifa Hospital, well known as the largest hospital on the Strip. At the time of this episode production in May 2024, intensive bombing and Israeli raids have left the medical facility in ruins. No patients remain, and the majority of equipment is unusable. According to the World Health Organization, the scale of devastation has left it non-functional. Israel said Hamas militants were using hospitals as shields for fighters, but has failed to provide strong evidence. The fate of Al-Shifa is not unique. Other hospitals and civilian infrastructures, including schools, mosques, and churches, have also been attacked. Many civilians have taken shelter in these buildings, believing them to be safe. But just 2 months into the war, the World Health Organization had recorded 335 attacks on healthcare facilities in Gaza. And by late March 2024, the United Nations recorded over 200 Israeli attacks on schools in Gaza, with at least 53 schools totally destroyed. As Alaa tried to decide where to go, a safe place for his family felt increasingly elusive. Shortly after October 7th, flyers dropped via helicopters informed civilians in northern Gaza that they had to evacuate to the south of the Strip and to avoid certain other parts that were designated to be bombed.
After it, I went to my wife's cousin's home. We get there, we spent 5 days, 4 nights, and then the IDF used helicopters with small papers and just throwing it in the sky of Gaza. And then the helicopter and the IDF announced that we have all to get to southern Gaza, and we have to evacuate from Gaza in the north to the southern.
At this point, thousands like Alaa were displaced, forced to flee the ongoing Israeli bombardment concentrated in the north. The destinations that residents were told to escape to were vague, and it remained unclear which neighborhoods were safe. The confusion was compounded by regular cellular and internet blackouts, which made it challenging for civilians to access any information on where to go. On the same day Alaa was being bombed in the north, videos in Gaza's southern city of Khan Yunis show swathes of rubble and bombed buildings. Only 2 days earlier, the Israeli army posted instructions for Gazans in different areas to shelter in specific locations, such as Khan Yunis city center and Rafah city center. The next day, on October 11th, an Israeli strike hit the central Najma square in the southernmost city of Rafah. With no clear area for civilians to evacuate to, UN organizations and aid groups warned there is no safe place in Gaza.
We said where we have to go. We don't have any place to go. I am one of the luckiest guy that I have my grandfather's home in Al Nusayrat camp.
Al Nusayrat camp is located in the middle of the Gaza Strip, about 13 kilometers from Alaa's neighborhood. It is home to around 85,000 refugees and their descendants who fled from the southern districts of Palestine after the 1948 war. After October 7th, Nusayrat camp was the target of Israeli aerial and ground bombardments with its own mounting toll of death and destruction. Nusayrat is also the location of the recent attack by the IDF that rescued 4 hostages, but left at least 274 Palestinians dead and over 600 wounded.
Some of my colleagues, some of my contacts. Some of my friends had a connection with security focal points, with someone who knows the security focal point in the Israel side, but no one can assure you whether the area you are in is safe or not. For example, they targeted schools, they targeted hospitals, they targeted churches, they targeted streets, they targeted buildings, towers, apartments, houses. They targeted even farms, even private chalets. So no one, even the one who had connections, no one can assure you 100% that the area or the neighborhood or just the apartment you are living in is safe. But there was a funny thing that the neighbors made in when I was in Nusayrat. The neighbors around there wanted to make sure that their neighborhood is clean, that there is no one targeted is like hiding here and there. What did they do? They just knocked on every door and asked the house owner that, do you have any people who evacuated to your home? And if you have, from where and what do they do for living? So they can make sure that there is no one targeted is in this neighborhood. So they did this, but also they just bombed empty houses. So even this small initiative that made from the neighbors even collapsed because they just bombed everywhere.
In a later conversation, Alaa explained this further. He told us about Gazan hospitality, that they are very welcoming and open, willing to provide shelter and food to anyone who comes knocking, any time of day. He said the neighborhood checks were for everyone's protection, to see if anyone was there who might be deemed a Hamas affiliate by the IDF, with the hope that they could keep the neighborhood safe from attack for a night's sleep. Since 2007, Hamas has run not only the military, but the government and civil services of Gaza. Recently, the IDF revealed they used an AI system to compile a list of up to 37,000 Palestinian men it determined had some link to the Hamas-led military in Gaza.
After that, the IDF started for bombing every and each square of northern Gaza. Just started to burn it, attacked it, bomb it, vanishing it from the map, started to target civilians, okay, all the time. But after this evacuation from north to south, they started like with heavily and insanely bombing and attacking everywhere. One of them was my friend. He died for one of this. Actually, my friend was, he put his family in Rafah. It's in the most southern point in Gaza. He put his family, his wife, his kids, his father and mother in Rafah. But unfortunately, the car wasn't big enough to equip all the things they needed. So after they get them to Rafah, he said to them, I want to go back to Gaza and get the other things we left around, and I will come back. Sorry, I will come back to Rafah in 1 hour max. He said, okay, take care of yourself, drive safely, be aware of the bombs. He said, okay. After he went to Gaza, he just equipped all his needed things, all the necessary remaining things that he have, and he couldn't get back to the southern of Gaza because of the heavily bombing. So he called his parents. He said, don't be afraid. I will come back tomorrow morning when the route will be safe. And because of the heavily bombing, I cannot come back to Rafah. So take care of yourself, guys. I will take care of myself. I will come back tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning after day, so he started his car and went back to Rafah. While he's driving, someone called him and announced that his father, mother, his wife, his two children, a boy and a girl, just got attacked and they all died. He stopped his car. He was just shouting, I was supposed to be with them. Why did you leave me alone?
رجع الخي يا عين لا تدمعي له فوق كتاب رفقات ونحبينه رجع الخي يا عين لا تدمعي له فوق كتاب رفقات ونحبينه رجع الخي يا الله لقربينه هالشهيد دمات ودين علينا.
So nowhere in Gaza were safe. No place in Gaza was safe. East, south, west, north, all these places were a big target.
By February 2024, Rafah in the south of the Gaza Strip, a town of 300,000, hosted 1.4 million people. Living conditions grew increasingly desperate, compounded by a lack of clean water, toilets, showers, and sewage systems. Over the course of the war, a growing number of civilians have been killed in areas previously declared as safe zones, such as Rafah. Many groups, such as Amnesty International, condemn these attacks and ask for war crimes investigations, saying that they have deliberately targeted civilians living in places marked as safe zones, with no indication of the destroyed buildings being legitimate military targets. In May 2024, at the time of this episode production, Israel has launched a ground offensive toward Rafah. Around 1 million people have fled the area, many of whom have already been displaced several times in the last 6 months. In Gaza, the information and communication technology infrastructure is completely dependent on Israel, where the only high-speed internet connection runs through Israel and is subject to Israeli oversight, and wireless communication is only available on 2G networks. Since October 7th, every Gazan has struggled with mobile communications. With Israeli bombs damaging cell phone towers and networks, internet and cellular disruption is constant. There have also been periods of time where internet access has been deliberately shut off. Between October 2023 and March 2024, there have been 10 prolonged communications blackouts, some announced by Israel in advance of specific assaults, and some because of equipment damage or simply lack of fuel for generators.
Connections were very poor and very difficult during the corruption for the main lines for the internet and landlines. We succeeded to secure an eSIMs that we can connect to the internet.
Despite a failing telecommunications infrastructure in Gaza, civil society has found a workaround for mobile connections. eSIMs, purchased from Israeli and Egyptian providers, have been donated to some Palestinians who have newer phones by civil aid initiatives outside Gaza, helping them to get small amounts of connection despite the shutdowns. Still, making a call wasn't exactly easy for Alaa.
The problem was that we have to go to the rooftop every time we have to connect to the internet or making some calls via WhatsApp, Facebook, whatever. So if you want to connect to internet, you have to put your life at risk, that to go to the rooftop and make your calls. And when you make your call on the rooftop, actually there were air drones everywhere, just capturing you, just seeing you there. And it was a little bit difficult to just doing the calls right there. Yeah, I managed many times to call Ahmed actually, and trying to just speak and just chatting to blow out my head to just to release the pressure I have got. And actually, the funny thing is when I call Ahmed or I call someone from the outside of Gaza, they just see the news every day and see what's going around. But what they not understand that what is shown in the media actually doesn't cover about 20% of what's really going on in Gaza. If you call anyone from Gaza right now, you will get into headache just from the drones that we called it Sanana, the buzzing one, because it's always all the time. That alone put you on stress. That alone makes you headache and makes you nervous. You can't get sleep. You can't do anything because of this sound. Neither the sound of attacking, bombing, every time, every second, in every place. Every time the connection was interrupted or lost in Gaza, the number of murders was just insanely increasing. So they use it and benefit from it that there will be no press, no one to cover what they did. So they just execute. They just hit, they just bomb everywhere and every time.
For those in Gaza and observers outside, the communications disruptions have a sinister meaning. When the last connection between Gaza and the outside world is cut, these are the moments when it seems that Israel's bombardment hits hardest. During these times, journalists on the ground are impeded as they try to share the death and hardship they are witnessing. Gazans can't communicate between each other or reach emergency services, much less stay in contact with anyone outside. During the first such major blackouts in advance of the initial Israeli ground invasion, the organization Human Rights Watch warned that these blackouts can provide cover for mass atrocities and impunity for human rights violations.
I was actually talking to one of my friends yesterday. I succeeded to make a connection via WhatsApp. He said there's the first one, he means like in attacking or bombing. First one, second one, third one. He counted 21 in just less than 1 minute. This type of attacking, it's called fire belt. Fire belt means like attacking all the neighborhood on the same line in the same moment. They just launch every rocket they have in the same moment just to get all the side in the same time.
Fire belts, or El Hajam al-Nari, as it's called in Arab media, are described as an attack where several missiles are dropped back to back on a single location. They are reported to have wiped out entire neighborhoods in Rafah, Khan Yunis, and Gaza City. According to Alaa, this seems to be a new tactic in this war. Food and water scarcity has impacted almost all Gazans to devastating effect. For civilians trapped in any war zone, food scarcity is a serious problem. In recent years, under Israel's blockade, Gaza has already had incredibly high food insecurity. The tight confines of the region, combined with Israel's punishing import rules and control of natural resources, meant that the war began with everyday Gazans already in a precarious position. However, at the start of this war, Israel implemented a complete blockade of the region, stopping all food and fuel from entering Gaza for 2 weeks. Since then, aid was allowed to trickle in, but not in quantities sufficient for the 2.3 million residents of blockaded Gaza. In May 2024, a panel of international lawyers for the International Criminal Court unanimously agreed that there were reasonable grounds to believe that Netanyahu and Israel's Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant had committed the war crime of intentionally using starvation of Gazan civilians as a method of warfare, alongside murder and persecution of Palestinians as crimes against humanity.
Everyone right now is taking one meal per day, and it will be like a pack of biscuits if any of the aids entered Gaza, or some like If there were some of trees that have oranges or any apple or anything, so they take it and that is their meal for today. The situation got harder and every day get more harder.
Alongside starvation, Israel's management of Gaza's essential resources has left 95% of Gaza's population with no access to clean water. The last 2 decades of constant violence and blockade have left Gaza's water infrastructure weakened and the water resources contaminated. Now, as people are displaced and homes and infrastructure are destroyed, they struggle to maintain hygiene and risk serious health consequences and disease.
No one in Gaza is safe. No one in Gaza lives like a human. No one in Gaza feels like a human. When I called my friend that we were talking about, I said, if you were in an interview and they asked you what's my main thoughts right now in Gaza, he laughed and said, like, how to get in the bathroom like a human. I laughed because I went there and I know that there's no water to wash your hands, to wash your face, to take a bath. When you get to the bathroom, actually, it's like you live in a luxury life. So you have water. You have water to wash your hands. You have water to shower your body. You have water for the toilet itself. So you are rich. You are living now in the luxury life right now. If you have one of the simple things like water or some battery that provides you with electricity, or you have an eSIM that can make cover actually in your area, you are now in the luxurious life. Because all of the people right now in Gaza, when we look at them, we will see that they are not living. They are dead men walking. We can ask anyone if we want. Let's say we saw someone unknown in the streets, and you ask them like, when was the last time you took a bath? He will look at you and wondering the question because last time he took a good bath was on 6th of October. Right now, nowadays, everyone took a bath or is taking a bath, and we call it a bath or a shower every 4 days or every 5 days with 2 cups of water. Going to the bathroom is like for one time per day. You collect it and you go to make it one time. And when you want to go to the bathroom, it's like a strategic planning for the long time because first of all, you want to see whether your phone is charged or not because you want to use your flashlight because to light up this bathroom. That's the first thing. The second thing is you have to make sure that you had your glass of water just to clean yourself up after bathroom. Second thing is you have to make sure that the dirty water you use to clean up your clothes, if you succeeded and managed to get some water to clean up your clothes, take it and fill it within the toilet so you can use it to shove the toilet. So it's a complicated mission. It's very complicated. They just cut it to one time per day. That's the last update I've got.
All of the people who have been heard here on Gaza Voices have left Gaza and are safe at this point, but none of them had an easy path to leaving. Palestinians have one of the most restricted passports in the world. For Gazans, even before the war, leaving their own region was an arduous process. During the past 2 decades, the border between Gaza and Israel has been strongly controlled. Unless they apply for a permit, Palestinians can't leave Gaza via Israel, even to go to the West Bank, the other part of the internationally agreed upon Palestinian territorial unit. And only specific categories are eligible: merchants and laborers, patients and their accompaniers, aid workers, and no one else. To leave via Egypt requires applying to either the Palestinian Authority or the Egyptian government several weeks in advance. In 2002, the airport in Gaza was destroyed, and the port is heavily restricted. Gazans can't leave their country by any border without getting prior approval from another government. It's a situation that human rights organizations have called an open-air prison for the 2.3 million people who live there. Alaa managed to get out of Gaza around the 55th day of the war, along with the entirety of his immediate family. We spoke with Alaa again in early June 2024 to record this last section because the audio from the first interview couldn't be used past this point. Here, Alaa shares with us how despite strong family connections and early commitments from Germany through his father's long working relationship with a German foundation, it was not straightforward, quick, or easy to leave.
The problem was actually that we were like 8 persons. This is our family. We are my father, my mother, and I have one brother and 2 sisters. But as you know, I am married, so I have also my wife. And my sister is also married, so she has her husband. So we are totally 8 persons. And at first, they have denied to take anyone who's above 18 years old. So the approval was just for my father, my mother, and my little sister. She's 16 years old. And then my father has said, okay, either all of us or none of us. And they started to make it again, and then they said, okay, we will allow also for your youngest son to be evacuated, but for your married sons, we cannot evacuate them also. He said also not, they are also my family and I cannot go out without them. It's not an age thing, but as a German culture, they, let's say it in this way, from 16 or above 16 or 18 years old, they think that, okay, they have their own life, so they are not really attached to their families. But my father had making good reasons that we are not like the EU culture. We are stick together and we are living together. And after more and more tries, they accepted my brother. And after that, in 20 days or 1 month approximately, they accepted to get me and my sister without our spouses. So that was a little bit angry for us because as we are one family, we cannot just leave, for example, my wife or my sister cannot just leave her husband to this. But he also made some good reasons for this. And he said, we are all living together and we are all one family. Either we go in one family or we are not evacuating anyway to go from Gaza. We managed to evacuate from Gaza on the 16th of November. And the approval was, I think, as I remember, on 15th or 14th of November. But actually in that day, there was a list that they share all the evacuations name or the approval names after they have checked it from the Egyptian side and from the Israeli side. And actually we were all approved in this list except my father and my sister's husband. They were rejected. It was like an insane. How does my father got rejected and he's the reason that he got us out? It's not reasonably. So after they made a lot of shots again to get him approved for evacuating Gaza, and he's finally got the approval, and they came to Egypt. They did evacuate after 1 month or approximately 1 month of us getting evacuated to Egypt. To remember it, it was very terrifying. It was horrible. When we've got accepted, I remember I called my cousin and I said to him, finally, we've got accepted. We can get out from this. And he said, I'm thanking the God that you have got accepted and you will get out. And I was in every second of the call and every second of this night, I was thinking that, could I live to evacuate or will I die in the next few moments or something like this. I wasn't actually believing in that I could live for the next day. It was like a dream for me that, okay, finally I will be getting out from this war. Actually, right now when I remember this, I feel like I'm still in Gaza. I feel like, okay, my body is out. I am starting right now a new life. I'm doing language courses and I'm doing a new identity for myself, but my mind is still in Gaza. My mind still remembers every bomb that occurs in front of me, or every person, or every casualties, or every murder that I have seen in front of me. I can still see it in my eyes. When I'm right now speaking with you, I can still see it. And I don't know, I hope that everything will go in a better way and it will be ending soon. I will tell you something. When we first entered Rafah crossing and we entered the port there, and we traveled by Hala agency, actually. It's the agency that coordinates the traveling from Gaza to Egypt. And they have given us cold water, okay? And I was like looking to my mother and I said, the last time I have seen cold water was like before 7th of October. I am dreaming or I am in reality. And I said to my mother like, okay, so today after we arrive, we can take a normal bath as a human. You can imagine how much I was like happy to get not just a clean water, also a cold water. So it was like a miracle for me. And after that, when I arrived there, my little sister said, okay, I want to wash my hands, but I'm afraid to losing water. And I said, we are not in Gaza right now. We have escaped. We have survived. Actually, it was the hardest thing that I have done in my life. All the people of Gaza or all the youth in Gaza are dreaming to get this chance to get out from Gaza in the normal days. But they wanted to do it by their own. They don't want to do it like in this way. They wanted a good future, they want to get a good job, they wanted to get better income, but they don't want to flee away from Gaza. So it was the hardest move that I have done, and I am sure that when the war will be finished, I will be back to Gaza as soon as possible, because there was my life. There was my all things that I have dreamed of.
Since December 2023, Alaa has been in Germany working to put his life back together and figure out his next steps. As the largest host to refugees in the European Union, Germany has a long-held commitment to hosting people displaced by conflict. However, that doesn't make the transition easy. The path to integrating into German society, finding a job, and being able to build a life is difficult. Many reports track the successes or challenges of various refugee groups in Germany, and similar themes emerge. Some people are able to do it, and some get caught up in the famously difficult bureaucracy, language, or unfamiliar and sometimes unfriendly culture. In addition, a rising far right in Germany is partially energized by earlier influxes of refugees from the Middle East and aims its platforms at reducing migration and increasing deportations. In 2024, immigration rose above climate change as a priority for Germans, especially those without an immigration background who fear that migrants could damage their own sense of home. Regardless, Alaa is trying to settle and recover from the war. But he is also very much affected by both his experiences and the ongoing violence in his homeland.
I can't imagine my future, actually. Before 7th of October, If you asked me this question, I would tell you a novel. And I would tell you like tons of things that I am dreaming of achieving and dreaming or preparing to making. But right now, no. Actually, do you know what's the hardest part is? That, for example, right now, okay, I made a new identity, okay, and I have my residency permit, and they say that I am stateless, but in the same time, when I go to transfer or translate my Führerschein, my driver's license, they said, okay, that's Palestinian. And I said to them, okay, how it could be that this is Palestinian and you are saying that I am stateless? It's confusing, okay? So you have one of two choices. Here is my identity, here is my residence permit, okay? Either you just say that I am Palestinian, not unbekannt, or the second option that you can translate my Führerschein, my driver's license. And he was so confused that he made, what? What are you? So the thing is, I don't know what my future will be like. Germany doesn't know what my future will be like. I don't know if Gaza will be okay like in 20 years from now, because it will be taking decades to get what it was before 7th of October. My life right now is confused. I can admit that the war has shattered me into a million pieces. And right now, not just I have to start my life again from under the scratch. I have to rethink again about my future, about what should I do or what I am planning to do. I know that there is a lot and a tons of opportunities here, but I will see if they will recognize my degrees at first, if they will treat me as a normal person, not a refugee. And after that, I can decide what should I do or what I want to do. But right now, I can't give you a clear answer. It's very hard.
After experiences like Alaa's, it's no wonder that envisioning the future is difficult. We ask him about his hope for Gaza.
My hope for Gaza? Okay, my hope for Gaza, I think about it, but my simplest answer to this question is, I hope that this is a dream and we will suddenly wake up and we will find us in 7th of October and nothing happens. I wish that Gaza will be back as 6th of October was, because we had the most wonderful, amazing, breathtaking life ever. That's the simplest answer that I can give you.
Alaa and his family have been granted temporary residency in Germany. Alaa is in daily German language classes as he and his family continue to try and build a new life for themselves. Despite experiencing deep loss, he is one of the lucky ones. Thousands of families remain in Gaza, and many who were able to flee were forced to leave their loved ones behind. Throughout the rest of this year, Gaza Voices will bring forward individual interviews like this one to bring human perspective to the war in Gaza. If this episode touched you in some way, we ask that you pass it along to other people you know who are looking for new context and more information about what's happening in Gaza. Follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Gaza Voices 24. Our website is www.gaza-voices.com. Thank you for listening to these Gaza Voices.